It's 11 p.m. Your phone rings. A friend's name appears on the screen. The same friend who hasn't asked how you're doing in 3 months. You answer. A few minutes later, they say, "Could you do me a favor?" Tomorrow, you have a ton of backlogged work. You're tired. You didn't even rest properly tonight. You want to say just one word. No. But you pause for a few seconds. And finally, you say, "Okay, I'll do it." When the call ends, you stare at the dark screen, and just one question spins in your mind. Why can I never say no? If your whole life you've been told that kind people always win, what I'm about to say might sound strange to you. Maybe it's precisely because of this kindness that you're pushing people away. Have you ever always made time for others, but when you needed someone, everyone suddenly got busy? Or you could never say no to anyone, but those same people never showed the slightest regard for your needs? If this has happened to you, there's a very high chance the problem isn't your good heart. The problem is that your brain has believed a beautiful lie for years, that if you always keep others happy, they will eventually love you. But the reality is exactly the opposite. Psychological research shows that people who constantly seek to please others experience more anxiety, mental exhaustion, and decreased self-esteem because they derive their self-worth from others' approval, not from their true selves. Now, you might be thinking, so from now on, I shouldn't be kind? Should I become cold and selfish? No, and this is exactly where most people make their mistake. What ruins relationships isn't kindness. It's the need for approval. Some people are willing to upset themselves every single day just so no one gets upset with them. And strangely, they don't even realize they're making this trade. These two look the same from the outside, but they're completely different on the inside. Imagine a coworker asks you to do their project too. You're tired, you have a ton of backlogged work, but you still smile and say, "Okay, I'll do it." It's like some of us have our brains answer before we even think. Sure. And then on the way home, it hits us. Wait, wasn't I supposed to get my own work done today? The question is, did you really do this out of kindness? Or were you just afraid that if you said no, you wouldn't seem like a good person? This question is more important than you think, because most people who are called very kind aren't actually kind. They're afraid of rejection. They're afraid of upsetting others. And they're afraid of someone thinking badly of them. That's why they slowly become someone who's always available, always agrees, and always puts their own needs last. Some people are so always available that if someone calls at midnight and says, "I have a small favor," their brain has already answered before the request is even finished. And the strangest part of all is that the more you do this, the less people appreciate you. Not because they're bad people, but because the human brain interprets your behavior in a completely different way. But why? Why does the human brain value someone who's always helping less? If the problem isn't kindness, then what exactly is it? The problem isn't kindness. The problem is when kindness becomes a tool for buying others' approval. When your goal isn't to help, but to not lose the relationship, your brain enters a dangerous cycle. Imagine your boss comes to you at 5 p.m., just a few minutes before the end of the workday, and says, "Can you get this report ready tonight too?" You want to say, "No, I have plans for today." But before you even think, you answer, "Sure." The funny thing is, when it comes to accepting extra work, your brain makes decisions faster than the speed of light. But when it comes to overtime pay, that same brain suddenly goes, "Sorry, let's just stay quiet for now." It might be funny, but many of us repeat exactly this pattern. Psychologists have a famous saying, people treat you the way you've taught them to treat you. Not through your words, but through your behavior. If you always sacrifice yourself without any boundaries, this behavior gradually becomes normal for others. It's exactly like your home internet. As long as it's working, no one even thinks about it. But if it goes down for 5 minutes, You feel like human civilization is on the verge of collapse. But there's a problem. If saying no is so logical, why is it so hard and painful for so many of us? Why do we feel guilty just by imagining someone being upset with us? The answer to this question is rooted in something your brain learned years ago. And until you recognize it, you'll probably repeat this cycle over and over again.
This exact feeling of guilt is the final piece of the puzzle.
Let me ask you a question. If one of your best friends always sacrificed themselves, was always tired, never made time for themselves, and lived only to keep others happy, would you call them a good person? Or would you say, think about yourself a little too? You'd probably say the second. So why, when it comes to you, do all these rules suddenly disappear? The truth is, every time you say yes to something you don't want, you're actually saying no to yourself. No to your peace, no to your goals, no to time that will never come back.
Starting today, try just one small habit. Next time someone asks you for something, don't answer right away. Just say, let me think about it for a few minutes. I'll get back to you. This might seem like a very simple sentence, but those few seconds of distance give your brain a chance to step out of reactive mode and make a conscious decision. Maybe in the end you'll still help, but this time because you chose to, not because you were afraid of being judged.
If there's just one sentence from this video you remember, let it be this. Kindness is a choice, not forgetting yourself out of fear of upsetting others. People who truly love you will also respect your boundaries. And if someone is only happy with you when you're always sacrificing yourself, maybe they never cared about the real you. They just got used to you always being available. Thank you for staying with me until the end.
Until the next video, work on your mind, because everything starts from there. Goodbye.